want you to look at this list of laws and pick one or two that really stand out to you. All right, so these were a list of laws on the United States up until 1848. So the first one talked about like divorce. It's extremely difficult for a woman to divorce her husband in most states. In New York, adultery was the only ground for divorce, which means your spouse cheated on you. Other states allow divorce for bigamy, so having multiple wives, divorce if your spouse left you. Can you guys mute your mics for a minute? Or extreme cruelty. If people did get divorced, most courts gave custody of the children to the men. Alimony was sometimes awarded to women, but they were not allowed to sue in court to make the man pay. It was considered improper for women to speak in public. It kind of goes back to that old idea that women and children should be seen and not heard. And so,
public?
Speak in public. They were not allowed. They were not supposed to speak in public. Nope.
Dang.
Until 1839, women were not allowed to own property in any state. So an example from this, Elizabeth Cady Stanton was one of the leading figures in the women's rights movement, and she gave this example of Flora Campbell, who owned a farm, which gave the Cady family eggs, butter, milk, veggies, and chickens. So Flora goes to Elizabeth Cady's father's office, the judge, and she's really upset because her husband had mortgaged her farm to pay his gambling debts. So the bank was going to foreclose and take the farm. And Elizabeth Cady couldn't believe it when her father said that basically there was nothing they could do. Women, just like enslaved people, had no right to hold any legal title to property, and anything that a wife had belonged to her husband. In most states, the father can legally make a will appointing a guardian for his children. So if he dies, they would say, like, this is the person that's going to take care of him. Should the husband die, a mother could have her children taken away from her. In most states, it was legal for a man to beat his wife. New York courts ruled that in order to keep his wife from nagging, a man should beat her with a horsewhip every few weeks. And until 1837, no college in the United States accepted women as regular students. Women couldn't vote in any state in the United States. Based on British common law, a woman couldn't sign a contract even if her husband lets her. So, like, that could be like a property contract. Some women would teach school, but they were only paid 30 to 50% of what men were paid for the same job. So looking at that list, what stands out to you from this list of laws? You guys can type it in the chat box for a minute, and then I'll give you all your directions for today. What are some of your takeaways from this list of laws? All right, so here's what we're going to do today. And then I'm just going to go in like hangout mode. And if you have questions while you're working, you can type them in there. You have an assignment that we're going to be working on today and tomorrow with women's rights. What I want you guys to do today is read the background information and the letters between Abigail Adams and her husband, John. I think you have 1 or 2 letters from like excerpts from Abigail Adams, and then you have his response. Sorry, my cat's scratching on the window. When you're done with John Adams' response to Abigail, to his wife, you're going to stop. You do not go on to Sojourner Truth today, because this is like the background, and then tomorrow we're going to talk about how the women's rights movement gets started and what it does. So